time. It's 2 o'clock for this webinar. I wanted to say to you welcome to this UFI Education Center webinar. The theme of this webinar is strengthen your business relations with the help of emotional intelligence. We are going to spend an hour together. How are we going to organize this? Well, let's organize this in 50 minutes together with a presentation, and then we can keep the 10 last minutes for your questions and answers, and that I will answer with pleasure at the end of this presentation. So, my name is Christina, Pecas. I work in success management training company. We're based in Paris, and the weather is actually beautiful today. So let's share this information regarding emotional intelligence together. And to start this, let's open the first document. And you will find the one written number 1 at the top, UFI Emotional Intelligence 1, on the top left of your screens. So let's load this document. Perhaps you've loaded it already, so you're ready on page, on the slide number 1 of this beginning of this presentation. So, for those who are opening their documents, let's start with the first part of this webinar is to tell you that our targets of us all is in our business relations. We wish really to build long-term relationships, and of course, everything we do is based on people skills. Now, we have a lot of exchanges, face-to-face, emails, or phone conversations, but here we're going to concentrate more on the face-to-face information on emotional intelligence. So in fact, in our everyday job, the most important thing is how to deal with people, because we all have skills. You have high skills in your industry, you have knowledge, you have experience, you have also your intelligence that can be evaluated by your IQ, your intelligent quotient. And today we are going to see now we can add an extra tool to your relations is going to be emotional intelligence. And before we go into the definitions and into emotions, I wanted to say that today everybody wants during their relationships, to be calm, to stay controlled of yourself, to keep smiling, but it not always happens like that, and that is very important in our relationships. And of course, in the exhibition industry, we have this approach with international people that gives it all the more important to have this tool with you, because they're very interesting information in there, little tips that you can use for your everyday business relationships. So let's get into this presentation, and before we start, and all these little tips I'm going to give you will be useful to be more efficient, gain some time and gain some energy in your relationship. So before we start this presentation, I wanted to give you a short presentation. Where does all this come from? You can go, please click on slide number 2 of the first document. And just to tell you that Paul Ekman here has made some research. And I want to tell you a few words on what he has done in his lifetime to find information on emotions and all the impacts that they can have on us and on others. So let's go into the second page down. So you would go on page 3, please, of this first document. And you will see that Dr. Paul Ekman is a renowned American scientist. I brought you his photo here on the left. So now you know what he looks like. He lives today in Southern California, and now he goes around the world for speaks and presentations. And he has written 14 books in total on his research that have been proven, and we have really solid information there that you can find in his books. And 2 of them are the major books that you can read if you wish to go deeper in this study. One is called Emotions Revealed, as you can see in the middle of this slide, and the second one is called Telling Lies. And it's the 2 themes that we're going to talk about today. And at the bottom right, you have Lie to Me. I don't know if you have seen it, this television program. It's an American TV series made by the Fox. And as you can see, this actor here, perhaps you know him, is called Tim Roth. And Tim Roth, in this TV series, is playing the role, in fact, of Dr. Paul Ekman. This series has been inspired by his life and has used really all these tools for more the police environment. It's a TV series on police investigation. And as those of you who have seen it, he talks about micro expressions, he talks about body language, and that is now available for us because, of course, it's made the American way, Hollywood-style film, and today these precious tools are also available for us, I would say, in our everyday jobs. So this is the presentation, a quick presentation of Dr. Paul Ekman, which has come out with all this information on emotional intelligence. So that was the slide 3 we're on. And of course, let's go on to slide 4, please. If you can click on slide 4. What are we going to talk about during those 51st minutes? It's this session overview. We will start with what are the 4 subjects of emotional intelligence? What is it about? When we say emotional intelligence, we can hear emotion, we can hear intelligence. So the good news is it's an intelligence and we can work on it. So that's good news. The second part we're going to do is let's get into emotions. What are we talking about when we say emotions, the definitions and the impact in our daily activity? And then the face, we will really zoom on the face and what the face can tell us in our relationships. And then the last part will be a small introduction to truth and lie evaluating. How do we know what people are saying? Is it true or not? We have a few clues there, very useful also for our daily life. Even if we're not searching for liars or for lying every second, of course. It's just a concept that would be useful for our relationships. So you will see how that will go later on. And we will finish, of course, with the 10 minutes questions and answers. So that is how we're going to get organized today. Please, let's go to the second document you will find on the top left. So let's all load the document number 2, the file number 2, please. And we will find the first slide, which will be the emotional intelligence 4 parts. Let's get into this slide together. So we're slide number 1 on the second document. So what can we see on this slide? There are 2 lines, and that's how we're going to read it. Let me prepare something like this. So there are 2 slides here we can see. So emotional intelligence can go into those 4 big domains of study. And let's go on to the number 1 and number 2. So what are we talking about here? So we have self. So emotional intelligence is the analyze and the self-awareness and self-management that we will do in regards to our emotions. For example, point number 1, self-awareness, meaning I have to become aware of when an emotion is triggered in me and what emotion is happening. For example, let's say we have an emotion of anger. So I am self-aware that anger in me starts a different way than perhaps it does in you. Perhaps it starts in the stomach and then it diffuses all around your body, or it starts in your neck, or it starts in your arms. So we're all different in the way the emotions appear in our bodies, and it's interesting to start analyzing this in our everyday activity, thinking, oh, well, something is happening here in my body, oh, and I know which emotion that is. So that would be the first part, when it happens, how it happens, and which emotion that is. And then we have the second part of emotional intelligence, would be self-management. Once I know what emotion and how they appear in me, what am I going to do with that? Am I letting it explode? Am I keeping it in me? And am I able to control it? So that would be the second part of emotional intelligence. And if I have a little tip to give you there, if you want to start these 1 and 2 parts, you can start getting a diary, like you buy yourself a book, and you start writing in the day what happens to you. A diary, so either you choose to write down major emotions when they happen, or perhaps you want to write down the ones you cannot control, or the ones that have been destructive to your environment or to yourself. For example, when it's a destructive emotion, you can think to yourself, oh wow, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and why did I suddenly get really cross, or why was I scared for that exhibition? You know, it depends of your job, of course, and what your missions are, or perhaps prior to an important meeting. Start writing these things down, because a lot of emotions can happen then, and it's important to start managing yourself and having an awareness for proper management on the long term. So that would be the first 2 parts of emotional intelligence. Let's go to number 3 and number 4, which is the bottom line, and that is regarding others. When we are in a business relation, we're meeting many people in our team, internally or outside, and with people from outside the organization. So you have others that you're meeting all the time, and what is happening for them. And by observation, by watching what they're doing, you will actually note that emotions are visible in these people. For example, you can see on their faces, emotions come up. You can see on their bodies certain movements that show that they're living something strong. So the other parts of this awareness of what the others are living, is very important. So that would be the 3rd step. And the 4th step would be managing the relationship with the other person. Meaning, the other person's got an emotion, I've got my own emotions, and now we're trying to communicate together. How are we going to have a positive relation in this? Sorry about this. How are we going to build something positive and constructive? Because we're all after emotions. We're all searching for, in our life, for positive emotions and trying to avoid negative emotions. Let's talk about our search for emotions. Let's say you choose to go on holiday that is very adventurous. Why do you go on adventurous holidays? Because you want to live strong emotions. It can be fear, for example, you want to jump off from a plane, so you want to feel fear, you want to feel excitement and joy, so you will go into these activities, for example. Then other activity, for example, you're searching for emotions when you go to the cinema. Why do people pay to go and see films in big screens? Well, people go and see horror films, so they're going to go into the search of emotions of fear. Some people go into action films. That is more strong. It can be anger. It can be fear of big impressive films on them. Some people go and see romantic films. It would be more love, sadness, and joy. So all this research for emotions is like our visitors to exhibitions. Why do people go to exhibitions? Well, they search for emotion, and we call it the experience. People come now and search for special experiences, and they will remember it because they have lived an emotion attached to it. Because computers are wonderful, we have a lot of emails, we have a lot of contacts through our computers and internet worldwide, but now people are looking also for strong emotions, and not only live and professional like exhibitions will bring that. So that is important to know about emotions, the search of emotions, and it's part of our life. We are people made of emotions. So now let's go into these emotions. Please go to the next slide. Slide number 2, please, of the second document. And we're going to go into the definition of emotions. So emotions are defined here by Paul Ekman. He writes that during an interview with Mr. Goldman, who writes really wonderful books. One of them is called Emotional Intelligence. If you want to read that, it's very interesting. So Paul Ekman says that an emotion is like a process, and it helps us deal with matters of importance to our welfare without thinking. So what do we have here? We have two things. In fact, emotions were created in us for our survival, for the survival of humanity. And they're useful for us either to flee when we're scared. It's useful for us, for example, we're driving a car and suddenly we have a truck in front of us. The emotions will take action and help us turn the car and not jump into this bus and have an accident. So it's made for without thinking, very quickly, and an emotion is about a quarter of a second. So you can imagine how quick that is to take over your body and your mind, and to survive of this possible accident, for example. So at the beginning, emotions are very useful in our everyday situations for our welfare, for our survival, but also for matters of importance. Why am I so emotional about an event, or why meeting that person puts me into a certain emotion? That is because something important is happening. So each emotion is useful, and we have to start dealing with it and being aware of all that. So how does this emotion is triggered? We're speaking to someone, perhaps he's going to do something, so this social interaction or something happening around us is going to trigger an emotion. It can be something that I see, something that I hear. An alarm, for example, an alarm for evacuation, that creates an emotion straight away. If people are not prepared of self-control. And then what you smell also creates emotions, and what you feel on your body creates a possible emotion too. So we have triggers around us. We have, for example, we have triggers like our memory. If we think of the past, of a past event, it will trigger an emotion in us. So we will feel perhaps not as much emotion as when it happened, but it reproduces the emotion today. And same thing, if you imagine the future, you will create a scenario, for example, an important meeting or someone you're going to meet with high importance, either financially or humanly, something really important. You can actually imagine the future and create emotions then. So we have the power, that's the first tip I wanted to give you, we have the power to choose what our thoughts are and whether they're going to diffuse this emotion in us. So if we only think of negative future events, we will feel negative emotions in us automatically. So we have the choice to think and guide our emotions into where we want. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I want to tell you is an emotion is very quick, very rapid, and non-controllable. So it's different from a mood. For example, you get up in the morning and you're in the bad mood. You feel irritable, but you don't know why. You just woke up, you've had a good night's sleep, and you can't explain why. Well, this bad mood will trigger, for example, that emotion all through the day, and you don't know why. So it can be days, it can be months. Compared to an emotion, which will be it can be very intense and rapid, and you can actually create your own chart of emotions. Like, ooh, that emotion at that time, when he announced me that there is a delay in the delivery for the caterer, for the exhibition, perhaps my emotion went really high very quickly, and then it went down slowly. So it's important to understand the timeline of an emotion in ourselves. How do we manage, and how that emotion goes back down after? How do you relax and come back to your normal self, not in the grip of an emotion? So we're going to go into the next slide to see what emotions there are and what is the timeline of those emotions. So let's go to the slide number 3, please. It's written 7 emotions with universal facial expressions. So Dr. Paul Ekman's work has said his conclusions, what he meant after all these years of studies, but there are 5 emotions that we all know. The surprise, we have fear, we have anger, we have sadness, and we have happiness. And there are 2 other emotions that are visible now and proven to be universal and with a facial expression that you can actually find into people's faces when they're talking. And that would be the disgust, when you smell something or when you see something, and the contempt, which contempt here means you feel superior to the other person in front of you. And the facial expression of contempt would be half of your mouth is pulled up. Let me do a contempt face for you. So I put up only one side of my face, and that's where you can actually observe in other people that they're feeling superior, or they're putting themselves in a position where they feel above you. So these emotions that we said, those 7 emotions, what does that mean? It means that we all have those 7 emotions visible from the outside world. Meaning, when I live those emotions, it's going to happen something in my body that will create a micro-expression. So on my face, something is going to happen very fast, and I will give the clue to the person in front of me of what I'm thinking, or what I'm feeling. So let's say I'm going to do a micro-expression now. It was very fast. I'll do it again. That is a micro-expression. As you can see, my mouth went on the side and my whole body went back. That is a micro-expression of fear. And that micro-expression, I have given you a clue that that is what I'm living. Normally, when we were living outside in ancient times, that was useful to show you that something was scaring me, that there was an animal, there was a danger, and you should run with me away from the event. But now it's useful in business, because if I tell you something like, oh, what about you asking me, what about this event? How do you think it's going to be okay with the delay? And I say, yes, yes, absolutely. And I do this with my face. In fact, I'm saying to you that I'm in fear, that perhaps I will not be able to keep the delay. So these little information, very important. We're going to test you just afterwards with some photos after. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you about the emotion timeline. So this is very technical. If you have something to write, that would be easier. It's 6 steps of an emotion. When an emotion triggers to when an emotion comes back down to normal. So let's do the 6 steps of an emotion, and that is useful for the management of our emotions. So the timeline is step number 1. There's a trigger. Something is happening in my environment, or someone is saying something to me that will trigger straight away something in me. So we all have this radar, we all have this scan permanently. Every second of the minute we get up to the minute we go to bed, we have this scan. And this scan is scanning the environment to check whether there's something risky, something that will, I would say, put the program in you and say, there's an emotion there, you need an emotion for your welfare. So the second part, after this first part of the trigger, something around me is happening. The second part will be the program. There's a program in us, like a computer, in our brains, and it activates in us automatically. The minute the trigger sends an order to the program, and the program says, you have to be scared, now you start the scary program. So step number 3, physiologically, your body is going to get into a special state because the program has told you to be in a fear mode or in an angry mode. And so physiologically, your body is going to change, like you're going to have a heartbeat, you're going to have hot flushes, you're going to be red in the face, you're going to sweat, for example, you're going to, your legs are going to be heavy. For example, your blood is going to change places. And I'm sure you've lived that, or your arms start to be tense. So now I'm telling you this, I'm sure you're thinking of events where it happened to you, and that's how, or the happiness, the joy, for example, how that is in your body and how that feels in you. And that is the physiological reaction starts in your body with a micro expression. And that is very difficult to master. Not giving micro expression is very rare. It could be 1% of the population. So that is absolutely not very usual to think, oh, I'm going to start not showing my emotions and try and hide them. Unfortunately, that is bad news. You will not be able to hide your micro expressions. So you have your physiological reaction start, that's point number 3. And then we're going to go into the 4th point, would be display rules. And that's where culture and international impact is going to come into the emotion. It's learned display rules. What is your youth like? What have you been taught to do? In which country do you live? And your country is not going to be the same as my country here in France or in Italy, for example. We have different way of exposing our emotions. And there was a study done by Paul Ekman, where he took a Japanese person and an American person. And to prove that we all have those micro expressions, he showed them this very scary film. And they left them on their own, one in each room, and they filmed them in the darkness. And they saw that when they saw those terrible images and this terrible video, the face of both of them showed fear. Or shows, for example, there was a bit of disgust also in both faces. But when we had the person come in that room and start writing things important for the study, and that's where the Japanese and the Americans would not do the same. The micro expressions would still occur, but it's the way afterwards, what do they do with it? For example, the Japanese will be more into, I'm scared, but I will smile. Because socially, it's not acceptable to show your emotions when you have another person in front of you. So he will adapt the way he shows his emotion to his environment, depending on the country you're from. But the good news is, and you're all in contact with international people, the good news is we have those emotions anyway on the faces of the people we're going to meet. And you are equipped, we all have this equipment in us naturally to observe these micro expressions. Now what we need to do is get some practice to get these micro expressions. And let's go into the end of the timeline and I'll show you the photos. So there's some rules that are adapted to each country, either to show them, like the Americans should show that those emotions in that context, no problem. And then we will go into action. Once we see that we're scared, are we going to run away? Are we going to not move anymore? What is going to happen to us? The action, or am I going to scream? What's going to happen here? And that is important to note, that the action attached to that program that is in us can be changed. You can decide that next time you have the big, I don't know, bad news, and you have your emotion of anger starts, and you started screaming at work because you were with one of your exhibitors on the line, and you put the phone down and you get up and scream. Well, next time you decide to control your actions. You have that emotion, you have anger in you, but you decide not to use it and not to lose control of that. So that is the important point of the action just after that emotion. And that's why step 1 and 2 of your emotional intelligence chart is very important. That's when you start listing the events or the relations you want to change into constructive relationships in yourself. And then to end that, it's not finished. We have a 6th point of our emotional timeline. The 6th point is the refractory period. In fact, we enter a period of, once I've lived this strong emotion, I will filter my environment and I will not be available to find solutions, to speak in a positive manner, in a correct way with the person. I use this when I am with my colleagues and I have had a strong emotional encounter with either a customer or at home, and I have to come back at work afterwards. I sometimes say it lasts a certain period of time. It can last a few minutes, but it can last an hour, a few hours, and even a whole day long. And when that happens, and I'm not available because I've been in this terrible emotional state, I have time to calm down. And some emotions take time to calm down. And that's why I enter this, sorry, I'm not available right now, and I wait. So I wait a few minutes until it calms down, so we can put techniques in place to reduce this time of refractory period, because I'm very sensitive to that emotion. I can easily trigger my emotion of anger again. So what I do is I got little tips I use my tips. I've got a little horse, electronic horse that jumps, and that makes me laugh. And this little horse I use would be my stress management or my emotion management tool, and I feel already better. It comes down my emotion, and then I can write my emails, talk to my colleagues more professionally and more efficiently, with more efficiency. So that is one little tool we can all add to our emotion timeline. So now you know the sixth step of the emotion timeline. Let's resume what we said. Step 1, there's a trigger. Step 2, my program starts. Step 3, physiologically, things happen in my body with a facial expression automatically. And then step 4, we have what are the rules that I have learned of how to display those rules, those emotions, sorry. Step 5 would be action. What kind of action? Am I going to not do anything? Am I going to jump, scream, or shout? And if we refer to the previous example. And finally, what is the length of my refractory period time? And the quicker we reduce that time, the better it is for everybody around us and for all our appointments, because often we go from appointment to appointment and we don't have time to calm down between this very high emotional appointment and we go to another one. And that's where we're not available. That's where we're not, we haven't got all our, I would say, our brain, our thinking process available for us to be very, well, efficient and professional and use all our expertise and our skills. So that is our 7 emotions. So are you ready to do this together? We'll go down the PowerPoint. Let's go to the next photo, page 5. Let's focus on the face and see slide 6, please. So when you're slide 6, what emotion do you see there, please? This is the first test for you. What emotion do you think that is? Well, that emotion is the emotion of surprise. Surprise, how do we see that as surprise? Surprise is, you can see a lot of white in the eyes. You've got your eyebrows high like this, and you've got the mouth that falls, not tense, very normally, it falls down. So if I do it myself, that is a surprise facial expression. Some of you who have got it, well done. And the others, let's go also everybody to the next one. Let's go to slide 7, please. So what do you think there? What facial expression is that? That is fear. That is fear. You can see the mouth, as I did earlier on, and you can see the mouth full at the bottom. You've got your neck, which is tense, and you've got your eyebrows down, and that is fear. Fear emotion. Well done. Let's go to slide 8, please. Slide number 8. Which one would that be? Well, that facial expression is of sadness. The mouth is down, the eyebrows are up in the middle and down on the sides. Even the eyelids are down also. So that shows the expression of sadness. And that one, let's go to number 9. What do you think of that micro expression? Does that create anything in you when you see this, this face that is smiling? So that is, of course, the emotion of joy. He is smiling up in his cheeks here, and the mouth is pulled back up here, and you have like a donut here, and you have here on the sides crow's feet, it's called in English. How would we say that in our culture? Anyway, like little wrinkles on the sides and a big mouth. So you have like a big donut here and a big donut there, makes a natural and genuine smile. That's why let's go to the next one. The number 10. Which one do you think is the true smile? Well, in fact, here the true smile is the one on the left. Why the one on the left? Because, as we just said, you've got the crow's feet, you've got the little eyes wrinkle, and you've got the smile at the bottom that goes nice and high up in the cheeks, with here even the little side of the cheeks up a bit, and that is a true smile, meaning that he is living an emotion of joy when he's smiling like that. So you can be sure that he has joy in him. Whereas on the right, you can see the face of someone who is doing a social smile. When we say hello in the morning, we shake hands, if you do in your country. Here, we say bonjour and we do a kiss in France. So what we do here is we see that there is a genuine smile, and we see there is the social smile when we see someone in the corridor or we see someone far away and we say hi. That's what we would do. So if we go down to slide number 10, please, 11, sorry. We can see here the true smile at the bottom of, if we hide the top part, and if you go to slide 12, that's where we see the real smile on the left. Look at the eyes. They're not doing the same at all from the left to the right. And so that is important. So here you've got this tool of micro-expression just by looking at these photos. Let's go to slide number 13. Well, that sounds, that looks different. It's to show the muscles that are engaged in your face when you are in grip of an emotion, and that one in joy. You will have the orbicularis oculis at the top. You will have the zygomatic major here in your cheek. But that is much more technical, and that is used more into the police analysis of people's micro-expression. They can use videos, and they can, as it was in Lie to Me, and they can slow down the videos to see each micro-expression and give a name to it for future use, for example, for police investigation, and to match what they're saying with their facial expression. So that is the part on emotional intelligence. You've got the basics here, you've got the emotions, and you've got what the micro-expressions look like, and that they're very fast, very rapid at 0.25, which is 1/4 of a second, and that is important to understand the functioning of an emotion, to know what we're going to do with it, because today people live emotions in front of you, and you can be able to be more precise in watching them. So the first, I would say, advice here would be really to look sharply to someone whilst you're asking the question and whilst you're presenting your for example, the subject you're talking about to your business appointment. It's important at the moment you're going to tell the news, the micro-expression is going to appear at that moment. So you have to be able to talk about it, and you're going to have to be able to spot the micro-expression in the person in front of you. So that would be a first advice here when we are in contact with people. And of course, the second advice is now we are in quadrant 3, we're in the step 3 of emotional intelligence. When we look at someone who lives an emotion, we also are living some emotions. So how about, are we going to converse together? And that is the 4th quadrant of micro-expression of the emotional intelligence, sorry. What happens here is that they are in the grip of an emotion, I'm in the grip of an emotion. Well, we have to give ourselves some time to get out of it. So why don't we, for example, talking something very tense, it has created a high emotion either in me or in the person in front of me. I have to be aware enough to decide to change, for example, the ambiance in the room. For example, let's have a coffee, let's get up, let's change rooms. And that would be more useful to start saying, let's take a break, let's take a few seconds of a break, we can think about this project, and let's go out for a second. And that helps accelerate the slower, your emotion, sorry, to make it go down much faster. So that is regarding those emotional intelligence subjects. What about, let's carry on with the last document, please, which is the number 3 that we can open together, third document. Let's charge that one. And we're going to go into the theme of short introductions on lie and truth evaluation. So you're going to tell me, well, we all lie every day. We're all proud to lie, even if some we choose not to. Well, we lie every day. What would be a common and everyday lie? It would be, for example, oh, hi, how are you? And the other person says, oh, I'm fine. Well, you're fine. Perhaps you weren't that fine today. You've had perhaps a bad morning, but you say, I'm fine. And that is a lie. So how are we going to find out if someone is lying or not? Well, there's something in the ancient times. Let me use this. In the ancient times, we would use this to know whether people were lying or not. So let me switch this on. Can you see the flame? This is a very powerful tool with a spoon. And we would heat up the spoon, make it really, really hot, nearly red, and then we would approach the person and put it in their mouth. And that would be very dangerous. So it would be bright red, put it on your tongue. If you would say the truth, it wouldn't even burn you, because your tongue would stay humid. So the water, humidity in your mouth would protect you from the spoon. But if you had lied, all the humidity in your mouth would leave. You would be scared. And often, you know, remember, when you're scared, you've got this dry mouth in certain events. Well, that is, when you use that on your dry mouth, it would burn you. But this was just a joke between us. Of course, nowadays, we will not use this old science, this old ancient technique to force you to tell me the truth or a lie detector. All this is not possible today for lie detecting, sorry. Perhaps you were thinking of using that in certain moments of your life to force someone to tell you the truth. But up to you to know what they're really thinking. Anyway, let's go into this lie detection and give you the what in lies, what does it mean to lie? So there are 2 options defined by Pollettman. Either we change the reality and we create a story that is not at all the truth, or we actually, they call omission, or we can actually try and distort. So sorry, I was saying, we either try and distort the reality by changing the information and not saying exactly what the reality is, or you can actually hide information, meaning you will, out of 2 or 3 elements, you will give just one, and perhaps not everything. So that's where this technique can be used during our appointments with our to build trustworthy relationships, because something is going to happen in the person that I'm able to see today, that you will be able to see, and that is useful for building something on the long term. So how do we know whether they're telling you the truth or not? And that is some reliable indicators of lie. And people think that, for example, if I scratch my nose like that, people think I'm lying. Or if I touch my shoulder, for example, that would be a lie. Or if I do this, I'm hiding something from you if I cross my arms. Well, that is not possible. That is not a proof of lie. Also, for example, if you look up, oh, if I look up like this, or I'm hesitating, it means I'm lying. Well, no. Let me show you what is the proof science used now in the world to know whether the person is really feeling or thinking. So let's go to the next slide together. That we were slide 1 of the third document. Now let's go to the slide, sorry, let's go to slide 2. Sorry, my computer, that's it. Slide number 2 is psychological models of truth and lie. So what happens, let's go to slide number 3, please. What happens when I'm talking to you, for example? When someone is talking to you, there's emotional things are happening, and cognition and mental things, thoughts, thinking is happening. So you have at the top of your slide, you have emotions and you have cognition. So all this is in harmony. When we're talking about an event that has really happened, everything is fluid, everything is spontaneous, everything is consistent in what you're saying. So things that happen in your 5 channels of communication. You have facial expressions happening, you have body language happening, you have your voice that impacts the communication. For example, hello, my name is, so how your voice impacts the way you talk. There's also your verbal style. How does your style, do you take time to speak? Do you have a slow pace or a fast pace? Do you use a lot of technical words when you're talking? What kind of verbal style you have? And in fact, and in the end, you have what content, what words are you using to communicate? So those 5 channels of communication are talking at the same time and are actually in harmony whilst you're talking. And all this, of course, it depends on the context. If you have pressure or not, it can actually change the way you're talking to people, but the 5 are in harmony. That is constant. So that is when you're telling the truth. Let's go into what happens when someone says a lie. And that is the next slide, slide number 4, please. And that is the chart of when someone lies. What happens? What happens? He is building a story, right? He's trying to reduce the stress in you because you have announced bad news, and I don't dare tell you that I have more bad news to you, so that I'm hiding some information from you. So I will start thinking a lot and having a lot of emotional activity in me. So I have a cognitive overload, I have an emotional overload, and something in my body and thoughts is going to happen. And that will create, this shock will create like a leakage. And that you can see it in the center of your slide. It's called the channel leakage. Something is going to happen in my body or in my words or in my voice. My voice goes up, for example, or my facial expression will be the opposite of what I'm saying. Earlier on, I was saying, oh yes, no problem. For example, for your caterer, yes, no problem. Everything will be done on time. And you can see this really quarter of a second micro expression. That is a leakage, and it becomes a hotspot, meaning that is not usual. He's saying something positive. Yes, 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 everything's going to be okay. And suddenly you add to it this micro expression of fear. There's something wrong about that. And often we say, oh, I don't feel this. Or I don't feel this person. When he's saying that, I don't know what's happening, but I'm not sure that's true or not. Well, you're right. Your feeling here is absolutely your private decoder. You have this decoder. But now you can put words on it. You can say, oh, he was saying it's okay, but I saw this micro expression of fear at the same time. And that we have to consider it as a hotspot and not as a lie. Because in fact, we could ask ourselves, why can he be afraid there at that point? Is it true that he cannot keep the delays? It can be other solutions. It can be, oh, okay, I haven't told my partners. My company is not, doesn't know this information. And in fact, I'm not sure my team will be sufficient enough because I have someone who is ill. Perhaps I will have to hire someone. Ooh la la, it's a long process. So perhaps I'm afraid there, I'm scared. And there's so many, there's 1,000 possibilities of why this person can be afraid when you're talking about this bad news. So why don't we, that's an advice we use at this point, is why don't we keep it as hypothesis? Why don't we keep it as there's something we don't know there at that hotspot, there, at that precise moment, and let's inquire. And that is the bottom part of your slide. It's written probes. In fact, it's a moment where you're going to question. It's a moment where you're going to go deeper with the person in front of you. So you're sure of what is happening and why he has showed these micro expressions. And of course, you're not going to say to yourself, you're not going to say sorry to the person, oh, I've just seen you scared there. Why are you scared? No, of course, we will keep it live. Well, tell me more. Tell me more about your organization, about the delays I've given you for the delivery of our exhibition. So, in fact, all this is useful for going deeper into what is happening. So, of course, we're not going to jump into conclusion and say, sorry, I don't believe you. I'm going to stop our relationship. So that is an important part of we call it the live physiological aspect, but it's in fact, let's say we spot something is happening and we want to go deeper to it in it. So that's why it's so useful for our business here. So that was the psychological aspect of lies, and then we can go to the next one, which is the 5th slide, and we're coming to the end of the presentation, and time's up, and we're going into questions now. So the 5th slide is the one you can see a sample of net. In fact, you're going to tell me perhaps, well, I'm not sure I can talk and see a micro expression at the same time, or be aware enough to be in communication with a person and just gently observe these micro expressions. I don't have the competency. Well, you already have approximately, humanity, we've got 50% of capacity of checking the micro expressions and knowing whether they're what they're saying is matching what their body language is talking about. And in fact, this MET tool is micro expression will flash, and you can work on that. It's a tool available on internet and easy to access, and you can work it. It's like other skills. If you put time in it, it's only a few minutes a day or every week. You go into this software and you can test your micro expression, and you click and you've got a percentage there. So that is a little sample of a tool that you can easily use there in your daily heavy agendas. And then we have slide 6, please. Of course, you're going to say to me, well, how long is that going to take? I've got a lot of subjects to cover with those 4 emotional intelligent parts. And well, it's true, there's a lot of work to do. So if you go on slide 6 and you want to start this process, you can either read some books, start this analysis by yourself, starting observing people more, trying to control your emotions when they are triggered, and you decide what actions you want. And if you want to go deeper in that and be helped with, you can go into a 3-day module called the ESAC and really concentrate on the 4 quadrants of emotional skills. And the second module is a 4-day. Really, we concentrate on truthfulness and credibility. Very important use when you are in business relationship, when you're in the sales, when you want to, you're going to sorry about this, when you're going to really high meetings with a lot of importance. It's wonderful to have this tool of ETAC that we work on 4 days, because they are the 5 channels of communication to study. There are all sorts of skills to obtain. We will see videos, we will do exercises there. So these are the 2 modules. For further information, you've got the website. And if we go to the last slide, that's slide number 7, that is for all your questions. I will please, with pleasure, answer your questions today. So you have Angela there with her email if you wish to contact her at the UFI, and you have also my email here and my detail. If you want more direct questions, I'll be happy to answer you, because 50 minutes is such a wide subject that I would love to give you so many more tips for your business relationships, but we lack of time. So let's look at your questions, please. and we can take 5 more minutes to give you the right 10 minutes. So I have a wonderful question here that I will say out loud. Don't hesitate to write your questions now and to type them in. And I'm going to read Anna's question. How long does it take to get better using this technique, and does it last? Thank you for this question. Yes. How long does it get better? It's your motivation that will help you go fast in this tool. There are many steps of the way you start with step 1, and then your step 2, and then every day you're going to see what happens when you're in the grip of an emotion. So it's a long-term process. It's emotional intelligence can be 6 months, a year, 2 years, depending on what you want to work. What is exactly your problem, or what is exactly your target in this emotional intelligence skills? And if you are, for example, your emotional problem, well, that can last a little longer. But if you're motivated in that study, congratulations to you. It's very interesting, and you're going to be proud of yourself, because already with this MET test, you will go very quickly in a few weeks. 1 or 2 weeks, you get better straight away. I did it myself at the beginning. I was about 50% of target, 50-55, and after 2 weeks I was already in spotting the right micro expression. I was already more than 90% of target there. So you can do it too, and already by following a training or by reading more and deciding where you want to go, already that's going to be a lot, and you're going to see the world with different eyes, that's for sure. You have a new decoder with yourself for negotiating. So another question here, what is emotional intelligence? Sorry, let me start this nice question from Nishant Aurora. So how emotional intelligence is different from emotional quotient? Wonderful question, thank you for asking it. In fact, emotional quotient is the evaluation of what is your starting point. If you choose to do this test, you find some on internet, or we've got some tests available where you do the test, and then it's like a starting point. Oh, that's my rate. Like emotional intelligence, okay, that's my rate. And that can be worked on. It's like a starting point. At the middle of your process, let's say 3 months later, you do it a second time, and in 6 months, you do it a third time. And you can actually evaluate your emotional intelligence there. Thank you for the question. And don't hesitate to write some of your questions. Another one here. Is emotional quotient similar to NLP? And is NLP under emotional quotient? Thank you, George, for this question. NLP is the study of excellence. NLP has been created and studied by the 2 creators who decide why does people succeed in things, and how can that success be implemented in me so I can be successful too. So I would say it's a different technique. It's something that gives you other tools. For example, the NLP, they have studied people who really like each other, and they've noticed that their body language is actually like a mirror. I'm myself certified in NLP, and I've learned that if in communication you decide to put your arms and legs exactly the way I'm sitting, we will speak much more fluidly. So these are interesting tips you can use from NLP into your communication. I would say it's another tool. And what it would be similar, I would say what would be different with EQ and emotional intelligence. Thanks to Paul Ekman's studies, we have noticed that in NLP, perhaps you have that tool too, when you look up in the air, you are in the past or in the future, and some NLP people have said in the past that if I'm on the right, I'm thinking of the future, and if I'm on the left, I'm thinking of the past. And if I'm oppositing my messages, I would lie. And that has been proven different than what is said. And they went to do a study in an airport and studied international people. And that rule has been proven that is not true for every culture in the world. Thank you for that question. So that would be the latest discovery on eye movements which proven, unfortunately, I had learned that too, which would not be still valid today. Thank you for that question. I hope I've answered you, but don't hesitate to contact me if you have knowledge on NLP. I'd love to talk about it. Yeah. Now let's go to another question. What is the impact of cognitive errors on emotional intelligence? Yes, it's like the memory. It's like we have our memory, make mistakes when we talk, absolutely. And in our module, in our core training of 4 days of ETAC, we make mistakes. Oh, thank you for saying that I answered your question. Yes, cognitive errors, meaning our brain registers information, right? And we have a whole day nearly of analyzing memory, because our brain is not perfect, and sometimes we don't remember events, and we say we remember events. But it's not a lie. It's in the lie detecting. We are positively trying to help the person, and sometimes we go too fast and we say things that weren't real. And sometimes we do believe that we have, in cognitive error, we do believe we have lived an experience, and in fact, we didn't. So cognitive errors are part of the study of the 4 days, yes, and that is another subject we could add to the presentation, but we didn't have much time. Sorry about that, George. Is that okay? Cognitive error is absolutely normal and part of the training, yes, that we have to stay in our relationship very careful. We have to stay very careful with the person in front of us saying, yes, yes, I'm sure, and in fact evaluating things with their own memory, that we all have not a perfect memory. Well, that is nice to know we're not perfect. Thank you. Thank you, George. Any other questions? Thank you so much for being with us in this webinar today. We're going to close it now. I thank you all. I say goodbye, and I'm clicking off. Bye.